I'd like to call the meeting of the Standing Policy Committee on Water, Waste and the Environment for September 9th, 2025. I am Ross Eady, the City Councilor from Mynarski and your chairperson today. Also with me today, we have Councillors Chambers from the St. Norbert Seine River, finally got it. We have Councillor Mays from St. Vital, and we have Councillor Rollins from the Fort Rouge East Fort Garry. And from our administration today, we have Mr. Tim Shanks and his team. And our excellent senior clerk, we have Mr. Braden Harris. I should give our land acknowledgement. We are meeting here today on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples. It is also the homeland of the Red River Métis, and we receive our water here in Winnipeg from Shoal Lake 40 in Treaty 3 territory. Councillor Rollins, would you move the minutes of June the 27th, 2025?
So
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. We have two additional delegations who want to speak to report number 6, recycling options for community events on city land. Councillor Chambers, would you move?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we have Chris Glacio and Evangelist. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. So now that we've done that, let's move into delegations. And our first delegation is Ramon Salas. Yeah, Salas.
Yeah.
From Caring for the Environment, Manitoba.
Are you sharing your presentation as well? Yeah, I can send. I'll send you up. Do you have the USB to your presentation? Did you have the presentation though that you wanted to?
No, sorry.
Okay.
I wasn't able to.
So in that case, the submission is on the agenda. Take up to 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Good morning, honorable councilors, city administrators, city clerks, and ladies and gentlemen. We, the Board of Directors of Caring for Our Environment, Manitoba, or CEM, express our sincere thanks to the Standing Policy Committee on Water, Waste and Environment for the opportunity to affirm our support for the motion to enforce recycling on all city-owned land. We especially commend Councilor Ross Eady for his prompt and positive response to our request. Founded in 2017, CEM is a registered organization dedicated to empowering individuals through environmental education and advocacy. We strongly support this motion, not just as a waste management issue, but as a reflection of our city's values and the legacy we choose to live. Recycling is one of the most accessible ways Winnipeggers can reduce our environmental footprint. For over 4 years, including the pre-COVID period, CEM partnered with community and business groups hosting large outdoor community events to promote waste reduction. We connected organizers with Recycle Everywhere and Green for Life Environmental Limited, ensuring proper bin placement and material segregation. Though resource constraints eventually limited our role, 2 of our 3 partners, Food Trip and Taste of Asia festivals, have since taken full ownership, supported consistently by our industry collaborators. Their success affirms the strength and sustainability of collaborative models. With support from the Knights of Columbus, our team once collected enough recyclables to overflow 2 large dumpsters, materials that would otherwise have gone to landfill Recycling at community events protects ecosystems, conserves resources, and extends landfill lifespan. Unfortunately, one community partner later discontinued recycling efforts, citing lack of volunteers and suggesting CAM take on the responsibility indefinitely. We believe, however, that with strong corporate and donor support, they are well positioned to lead and demonstrate environmental responsibility. Our experience shows that enforcement alone is not enough. Education, awareness, and engagement are essential. Community centers and event organizers play a vital role in shaping habits and values. When empowered, they become champions of sustainability. Imagine a Winnipeg where every outdoor community gathering, from festivals to food truck rallies, showcases proper recycling. And every community center teaches why it matters. This is how we build a culture of responsibility, not just through mandates, but through shared knowledge and collective action. We must act with urgency. This motion does not stand alone. It is part of a broader global response to the growing impacts of climate change. Across Canada and around the world, these effects are no longer distant threats. They are lived realities. In Manitoba's northern and indigenous communities, wildfires, flooding, and changing ecosystems are disrupting lives and livelihoods. These communities often bear the heaviest burdens while having the fewest resources to respond. This is not only an environmental issue, it is a matter of environmental justice. By enforcing recycling on city owned land, Winnipeg takes a stand. We lead by example, reduce emissions, and promote a circular economy. This motion aligns well with our Winnipeg 2045 development plan and the city's climate action plan. Let us do this for future generations, for our children's children, so they inherit a city built with vision, not burdened by hindsight. Let Winnipeg stand as a beacon of bold leadership, compassion, and unwavering purpose. Thank you very much. Signed by the Board of Directors of Caring for Our Environment, Manitoba.
Well, thank you for your presentation. Any questions, colleagues? No questions? How did it work out at the Maples Community Center the other weekend in terms of the recycling? There was an event there, or should I ask one of the other presenters?
Yeah, we reached out to the Maples Community Center to encourage waste recycling. At one event, their community, large outdoor community event, but the center manager informed us that the onus of responsibility is on the renter. So, because there's no current mandate that promotes that centers should require renters to provide recycling bins on site.
Right. So they're booking the space, and yeah, wasn't the community center running the event? Okay. So do you know what the underlying reasons? So you said a lack of volunteers. Is it all?
Yeah, that was the reason why. That was the reason that was given to us. But we believe that the event organizers have strong corporate and donor support, that they will be able to provide recycling bins and promote waste recycling, proper collection, segregation, and disposal of recyclables.
Is it also the cost of having a large bin for the recycling? There's a cost to that, right?
I think it's a matter of really just allocating a budget, because organizers can even afford to hand out amounts to to participating organizations to set up booths and participate in their parades, something like that. So it's really important that community leaders should be should demonstrate social and environmental responsibility. So we for 2 consecutive years we provided assistance. We partnered with the organization to be able to promote waste recycling. We demonstrated how the system works, linked them up with Recycle Everywhere and the Green for Life Environmental Limited, to provide recycling bins and then dumpsters to be able to promote waste recycling. So, but at the end of the day, the following year, we were told that, okay, anyway, that's your advocacy. So could you do it for us indefinitely? So that was the message that we got. So it's really important that community community organizations hosting large events should take responsibility for their actions, for promoting waste recycling. They should demonstrate to that value of environmental stewardship for the benefit of the next generation of leaders and to our children.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ramon, and we'll be dealing with the report. It's number 6 on our agenda, and if you stay, you'll hear what we're gonna do with this. And the Solid Waste Division of Water and Waste has some upcoming interesting plan for solid waste coming in the next months, and we may deal with that through there. Anyway, thank you very much, Ramon.
Thank you very much also for this opportunity.
Okay, our second delegation.
Our second delegation is Jacqueline Diddick, Senior Manager Programs, Canadian Beverage Container Recycling Association, also speaking to Report 6.
Okay.
Hi, you can come up to the front. You'll have up to 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me today. My name is Jacqueline Diddick. I'm the Senior Program Manager for the Canadian Beverage Container Recycling Association, CBCRA. CBCRA implemented and operates the Recycle Everywhere program. We are mandated by the provincial government as Manitoba's beverage container recycling program, meaning that we maximize recycling of beverage containers at home and away from home. We are supportive of the motion before you today regarding recycling options for community events. CBCRA is a industry-funded, not-for-profit, focused on keeping our communities clean and recycling beverage containers as conveniently as possible, no matter where you live, work, or play. We achieve this by educating Manitobans on recycling and by making it as easy as possible for people to recycle through our extensive recycling bin network. Since program inception in 2010, we have placed over 85,000 public space recycling bins in all corners of our province. And in 2025 alone, we have attended and supported over 325 community events with our brand ambassadors and our event bin infrastructure across Winnipeg and across the province. From this experience, we can tell you that Manitobans expect good recycling at events and that proper recycling at community events contributes to better experiences and cleaner communities. Over the years, we have partnered in varying capacities with Caring for the Environment, CEM, and Ramon and his team, the group that brought this motion to life to help expand recycling at events across Winnipeg. Recycle Everywhere offers free recycling infrastructure for community events of all sizes that can support this motion. This includes clearly branded bins designed for high traffic areas, educational signage to help attendees recycle correctly, our presence of our brand ambassadors or our street team to engage with the citizens on recycling and proper recycling habits, and direct support and guidance for event organizers to set up and manage their recycling effectively. Event organizers or volunteers can request recycling bins and have them dropped off and picked up at no cost to them. Over the years, we have supported thousands of events from small block parties right up to some of Manitoba's biggest gatherings like Folklorama, Festival du Voyageur, and more. This motion is an important step towards improving waste diversion at community events and city-owned facilities. Community events represent a clear opportunity to improve and increase materials diverted from landfills. The city can play a key role by encouraging or requiring recycling at events held on city-owned land. We encourage you to support this motion and direct the public service to explore the options that make recycling a standard part of every community event. If adopted, we are happy to support even more city events through our bin infrastructure, our brand ambassador teams, education, communication work at no cost to ratepayers. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
Any questions, colleagues?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Of course, Recycle Everywhere is on TV about recycling and trying to simplify the process. Would this also be part of a campaign, an education campaign for the general public?
Yes. Yeah, so we do have, it is part of our campaign, and we would love to make it more of a focus if we can put this forward. Yes.
Thank you.
I have, any of my other colleagues have questions? No? So Recycler, what's the actual name of your organization again?
The Canadian Beverage Container Recycling Association.
Association.
Yeah. And they run the Recycle Everywhere program.
Right.
Mhm.
Just out of curiosity, so you have a constant supply of funding that comes from Manitoba? Is it from the people who are selling recyclables or?
Sure. So our program is beverage container focused and is funded through the container recycling fee. So the fee that you're charged when you purchase a non-alcoholic, non-dairy beverage in Manitoba.
Okay. So you, one of the biggest problems out there right now are like you can buy a can of, I don't know, I know somebody, they drink Rockstar. So that's a canned alcoholic drink. But you can't return those cans. So you don't receive any money for those kind of containers?
Alcoholic, no.
None at all. Okay.
Yeah, none at all for alcoholic.
It's a big problem. Okay. So this sounds great. I didn't know that you thought you were only doing that program where you install the garbage can, the recycle and garbage bins. So you actually offer this. It's a matter of, I guess, educating the public then, right?
Yeah, we have, the more we can educate events, we try to go to many as, like offer the service to as many as we can, but if it's kind of a standard offering that they know is available, the promotion of that, I think, would be very helpful to support this.
Okay. Last question I have is, I understand the province has passed a bill. It hasn't been proclaimed yet. But it's all about 100% producer pay. Is that going to affect your organization?
So the transition for Multi-Material Stewardship Manitoba, yeah, for the full EPR, that's specific to residential recycling. And at CBCRA, our main focus is that away from home and that public space. So we will still be here and still be available to offer event infrastructure and support.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming and educating us on your program. And you'll hear we'll deal with report 6 when it comes up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our third delegation is Christopher Clacio, Secretary and Youth Head Committee, caring for our environment Manitoba, also speaking to report 6.
Good morning, Councillor, Chair and members of Standing Policy Committee on Water, Waste and Environment. My name is Chris Classio. Many of the city councilors know that I speak at council a lot, and this is my very first time actually speaking in City Hall, representing an organization that I truly believe is doing amazing work for my community. We are a Filipino-led environmental advocate group. I'm so proud that my community is really talking about the environment and really centering it on thinking about the long-term future. I've also worked with many urban indigenous young people, and they always talk about thinking about 7 generations ahead. I want to begin by expressing strong support for the motion before you today to enforce recycling on all city-owned land. The motion may seem modest, but in truth, it is a crucial act of leadership. It signals that Winnipeg is ready to hold itself to the same standards we ask of our residents. It demonstrates that sustainability is not just an individual responsibility, but a shared civic value. As a member of the Board of Caring for Our Environment, I actually represent the Youth Committee and the Secretary as on the board. Why does this matter? Because Winnipeg's recycling system is at a crossroads. We have many strengths worth celebrating. Winnipeg's 4R depots accept many more materials than most cities across Canada. From blue cart recyclables to hard-to-handle items like appliances, propane tanks, and paint. These depots prevent illegal dumping and make it easier for residents to do the right thing. We also benefit from the producer responsibility funding through the Multi-Material Stewardship Manitoba and Recycled Everywhere. This model, where industry helps pay for recycling, is not only being adopted in provinces like Ontario and Alberta, yet here in Manitoba, we've had it for years. It gives us stable funding and consistent education tools like the Recyclopedia. And our city has made visible investments in education. Campaigns like Be a Better Recycler remind Winnipeggers that plastic bags, tanglers, and styrofoam don't belong in the blue cart. Recycling is one of the most accessible ways that ordinary people can reduce the environmental footprint, and that's something to be proud of. But we also need to be honest about our gaps. First, contamination in blue carts remain a costly problem, while other cities like Calgary report contamination rates around 14%. Winnipeg has not published recent numbers. We know the problem is real and it undermines public trust in the system. Second, beverage containers recovery in Manitoba lags behind provinces' depot return systems. In British Columbia, return rates are above 80%. In Saskatchewan, close to 87%. Here in Manitoba, despite great work by Recycle Everywhere, we are recovering roughly 72%. Better than before, but not yet at the level of our peers. And thirdly, multi-residential recycling access is inconsistent. In many apartments, condos, residents rely on private contracts instead of city standards. Ottawa, Toronto, and other cities are already moving mandate recycling and diversion for all multi-residential properties. Winnipeg has an opportunity to catch up. This is why the motion matters. Enforcing recycling on city-owned land may not close all the gaps, but it does something equally important. It sets the tone. It shows that the city will lead by example. It means that when families attend festivals at civic parks, or when children visit community centers, they will see proper bins, clear signage, and responsible waste management. These are everyday experiences that build habits, shift culture, and reduce contamination at the source. Caring for our environment has seen this firsthand, but we also learned that enforcement alone is not enough. Education, awareness, engagement must go hand in hand. This motion will only succeed if it's paired with strong communication and collaboration. That is how we turn a bylaw into culture. Finally, let us remember that this is about more than bins. Climate change is no longer a distant threat. is lived reality in Manitoba. Colleagues, this motion aligns directly with our Winnipeg 2045 and the city's climate action plan. It is practical, it is achievable, and positions Winnipeg alongside the other Canadian cities that are showing bold leadership in this moment. Let us lead by example.
You need more time?
Yeah,
Perfect timing.
you're moving another minute.
No, he's completed.
You're done, Chris?
Yep.
Any questions, colleagues? No, I just have one. Did you attend Picnic in the Park this year?
Couldn't make it this year, Ross. Couldn't make it this year.
All right, just wondering if they were doing recycling. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation.
All right, our last registered delegation is Anne Evangelista, Caring for Our Environment, also in support of report 6.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you for suspending the rules to allow additional delegation because I was not able to register. And I could see that everyone is very serious in this room. Yes, I'm so happy to see that people are taking this issue seriously. But this motion is just one of the many aspects of the environment, as you know. My name is Anne Evangelista. Wearing two hats today. I am the Information and Communication Committee Head of the Caring for Our Environment Manitoba, CM. This organization alongside Kuya June, Ramon Salas, and Chris Clasio. And I'm also the current chairperson of the Environmental Advisory Committee of Winnipeg School Division. So I am in full support of this motion. And my spiel is very short because I want to summarize the action points that we would like to do. The action points that will be required for this motion. Of course, we would like to enforce recycling on all city-owned land to reduce landfill waste and align with Winnipeg's climate action plan. So second is, it's not a standalone. We need to pair enforcement with education and community engagement. So residents and organizers will become champions of sustainability. Third is strengthen partnerships with businesses, festivals, and community groups to model and sustain recycling practices. Advance environmental justice by recognizing the disproportionate impacts of climate change on Northern and Indigenous communities. And City of Winnipeg, if this motion is adopted, will lead by example. So Winnipeg becomes a model city of responsibility, vision, and climate leadership for future generations. So on behalf of CEM, we thank the Standing Policy Committee on this Water, Waste, and Environment for advancing this important motion. And we respectfully request Council's full support to enforce recycling on all city-owned land as a bold step towards sustainability and environmental justice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anne. Have a good day. We'll be dealing with the report when it comes up.
Questions?
Oh, you have a question? Go.
Yeah. Thank you for your presentation this morning. Probably, now that I'm thinking about it, recycling options at community events. Does this also include organic matters?
Yes, yeah, it has to be implemented as well. Yeah,
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
thank you so much.
Okay. All right then. All right, we're gonna move into, I thought that's it for delegation.
Correct, that concludes our registered delegations.
We'll move on to report number 1, which is,
That is the request for budget revision for the new pick upgrade power supply and headworks facilities and approval of contract over expenditure number 14, request for proposal number 659-2018B.
Mr. Shanks,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, it's quite a mouthful for a title. Apologize for that. Yeah, this is for Project One Headworks. This is a Headworks contract, construction contract. The report before you requests a budget amendment, and it's to resolve some outstanding items and also restore project contingency to bring us over the finish line. The items that we're talking about being resolved here are a couple of potential pending claims, but the majority of the cost is related to a contract relief event that's related
Contract what?
contract relief event for the pandemic supply chain escalation thing. I'll give you some background. This contract, so the Headworks construction contract, it's a fixed price design build contract. So it's not like our Project 2 and Project 3 contracts that are progressive design build. This is a conventional or somewhat conventional design build contract that is fixed price, bid on and agreed to. So the design build contract itself was signed in 2021. So that was right at the start of the pandemic. Its impact on supply chains and procedures and workplace rules wasn't fully understood at the time. So at that time, there was an attempt to manage the risk and put clauses in the contract to allow for a potential relief event for the contractor. What I'm saying is, if at the time, because everything was kind of unknown on how it was moving, a contractor could put in all the risk and just price himself into safety and say, if things go really sideways, I got to make sure my price is gonna cover my costs. But we tried to manage the risk by saying, look, here's some clauses in the contract that speak specifically to pandemic issues. We have a sort of a baseline right now defined. If conditions depart from that baseline, we'll consider it a contract relief event, and then that could result in compensation or covering of those costs, so that we would only really pay for the risks that actually show up. So it's many contracts during the pandemic were trying to do this. Those are the clauses we put in 2021. So sure enough, the things got a little bit worse there, and by 2022, the contractor had identified or put in notice that they believed the baseline had been departed from substantially, and that there was a relief event they could claim for. So we didn't initially agree with what they were claiming in 2022. There's been some back and forth over the duration of that supply chain issue, and then subsequently in the last year and a half, 2 years, I guess, we've gotten to the details of their claim as discussions and evaluation. This was mentioned. This hasn't been talked about here at the SBC Water and Waste, but we have mentioned this outstanding potential issue at SBC Finance in our quarterly reports, just flagging that we were working on this and it was unresolved. We haven't mentioned any of the dollar values in the claim or the amounts the contractor was claiming. We didn't mention those in the reports, and we actually don't mention that in this report either. And that technically has to do with if the report isn't supported by council, like if we do end up at arbitration, we didn't want to be seen in any way whatsoever as validating any of their numbers in a public document. So suffice to say, there was a claim to a dollar value that was quite large. Through our evaluations and negotiations that the contract allows us through our external legal review, we had a cost consultant look at it, a risk consultant. Through all that, we've come down to an agreement with the contractor, if this is supported by council, an agreement to settle this, resolve this dispute. The escalation part of it is $32 million of this. From our point of view, we wanted to bundle some other issues that aren't related to the pandemic. There's some other outstanding issues in the contract that we think they want to claim for. So we bundled. That's the $16 million. So we have a total before you of $47.5 million. Our existing contingency does have about half of that, but the issue is we don't want to exhaust the contingency and then continue for the remainder of the project with zero contingency. So this budget amendment actually is to add the money to pay for it, but also add money to replace our contingency. The net is the $47 million. There's a table on page 5 that tries to illustrate that. I apologize if that's confusing, but the 24 million's there and then it's back. But that's the intent here. We're looking to increase the budget, settle this claim, avoid arbitration, and continue on with some contingency in hand. We may not spend that contingency in the end, but the project is very close to completion. We expect to be completed next summer. So in that sense, things are going well, but this was an outstanding item that we were looking to resolve. A couple things to also point out, like, understandably, this is a very large number on its own. I want to be conscious of that. I dismiss that. I mean, $47 million is a lot. As part of the overall project budget, it's actually very comparable to it's a 9% increase in the current council approved budget, and 9% to resolve some issues and resolve the pandemic escalation. To put that in context, like the Canadian building price index was rose 40% over the pandemic period. So other CPI itself went up 20 points as well. So there was a lot of widespread issues and impact from supply chains and pandemic complications. This dollar value here, we did take a deep dive into the contractor's books in terms of the breakdown of where they were claiming costs, what type of equipment they were claiming costs on, what categories of costs they were doing. We did hire a cost evaluator that does this sort of thing for arbitrations, that has had a lot of recent experience with COVID escalation claims to kind of look at, are these costs actually legitimately, can they be connected to pandemic or escalated COVID related things? And they did. This consultant of ours did validate that some of these are legitimately connected to that. Separate from that, we had our legal experts take a look at the contract language and say, is there a contract argument here? Does this really meet the intent of the relief clauses in the contract? And as I'm sure you can well imagine, every legal exercise, every litigation or arbitration carries a risk. Nothing's ever absolute. But the response we got back was, yes, there is some legal risk here, and that there would be some dollar value, maybe not all of it, but some of it there. So we based our negotiating position around these evaluations, so that we went in with a good assessment of what we could be up against if we went to arbitration. So that's how we worked out to get to this number. Here we are, and another important thing I should mention, because I would expect a question about this, is the $47.5 million doesn't require an immediate rate change. We don't need to raise rates next month to pay for this. We do have the $47 million available in the environmental projects reserve. How can that be, you may ask, that we have $47 million available at this point in the year? The balances in the environmental projects reserve, specifically in that reserve, are for the new PIC expansion projects. They're also for CSO projects and basement flood relief projects. But the balance is adjusted based on our forecast every year of cash flow. And other projects really taken together, it can impact that cash flow quite dramatically. Right now, because we're in this era of mega projects, when we adjust our cash flow forecast for, say, Project 2 biosolids to update where we are in the design phase, development phase, that, moving some of that construction period from one forecasted year to the other can actually free up a lot of funds in the environmental project reserve. So as it happens, our most recent updated forecast on those projects gives us this room this year for this $47 million without having to impact rates immediately. Now, long term, obviously, the money in the reserve, gets used every year and contributed to every year, and that will ultimately affect future rates. In terms of that $47 million was there for future project spending. So this would be reflected long-term in a future rate report, but right now it has no immediate impact on water and sewer rates.
$15 million is a lot of money as well. what are the specific other issues you're dealing with?
Oh, the pending, yeah, the other claims was 16.3 was our kind of discounted valuation of that. It's a mix of some issues, some of them related to permit delays that I think we're vulnerable. Some inter-city department approval delays, having to do with where the contract has because it's a design build and the design progresses a certain percentage of design, at a certain time, you can start in a normal design build, you can start building something when it's not completely designed. But permitting usually requires 100% design to issue a permit. So there was some immediate back and forth there where we think we might be vulnerable to some late claims. The outfall condition, if you remember the Northwest Interceptor failure, which is separate issue here, but the failure of that underground pipe kind of informed all future excavations at the site, and so there was some work around the outfall that had to be done, and so the condition of the pipe was kind of preemptively. They did some work on the pipe preemptively, and we think that that's probably a legitimate claim. So there was a few other things, some PLC panel changes. Was the surge well? Was it?
Yeah, so the surge well was basically the conditions, the physical conditions were different than what was anticipated. And the level in the surge well affects kind of the level in the sewer system. So the way they have to approach moving, like some other construction techniques changed. Mhm.
Before my colleagues, I didn't ask this question earlier, but so design build happened with the Southwest Rapid Transit thing. It came in under budget. I don't think they had any permit delays, and they couldn't have had 100% when they went to pull permits.
I think it's different when you start looking at vertical infrastructure. So you may want to go with building your foundation before, maybe your entire fire safety plan is complete. But you would need the entire plans to be complete to get your issued for construction permitting. So
This is vertical.
Yeah, but we can say though, like that, the issue, the confusion and the issue there has been resolved in terms of this issue will not occur again on the rest of our projects. It's certainly a lesson learned that we've straightened out. So for the progressive design build, we won't have the same issue.
Oh, okay. All right, colleagues, Councillor Mays, did you want to go first?
Sure. Two things. I had asked for the city's chief construction officer to be present at this meeting. I was advised by the CAO last night he had other commitments. Councillor Eady points out a lot of these costs would have predated his hiring at the city. So we did bring on a chief construction officer largely to deal with the challenges of North End, but I suppose it is fair to say that a lot of this would have predated his hire. I want to read 3 passages to you and try and get some sense of how this runs together. So you've already talked about the 9%. If you look at the bottom of page 2, combined with the previous budget increase, the amended project budget will be 565. This represents a 9% increase over the current approved budget, which obviously built in a bunch of overruns we've already had. Okay, so that's 9%. Go to the bottom of page 5. We've got combined with previous budget amendment, this represents an increase over the original project budget of 19%. Okay, so if you combined overruns on this plus the previous overruns, we're 19% over the original project budget. Is how any English speaker would interpret that, because that's what it says, over the original project budget. Then less than half a page later, though, on page 6, combined with prior approved over expenditures, including, and then a whole list, the revised total contract price of $376 million exceeds the original contract by 38%. And that's only, the 19 and the 38 only appear once each. The 9 appears a few times. So with all due respect, I get the 9% is the increase over the already inflated budget due to previous overruns. But shouldn't we be, is it 19%? Is it 38%? Your own report here says it's 38%, so you have to come down pretty far to get to that. So I'm troubled that we're gearing up for another $1 billion project with Red River and we're 38% over. And you can't blame all of that on COVID. Sorry, but you can't. So is it 19% or 38% is my first question.
There's a conflation here between unfortunately our capital budget line item is named Headworks and Power Supply. It's an overall budget for a bunch of different contracts. The Headworks contract, to build the Headworks building, the Headworks contract that we're doing for here, subset of that. So the contract, the original contract price, yes, did not the original contract price for the Headworks construction that has had an additional $40 million hit from the Northwest Interceptor failure. It had some which is truly an example of something unanticipated. But some of the soils issues, contaminated soils issues, weren't part of the contract, but were certainly part of the budget in terms of an expected contingency that you keep separate of the contract because you only want to pay for the actual soils to dig up.
Yeah.
So the end result is contaminated soils add to the contract price as a over expenditure when it's more like a realized risk. But back to your point, the 38% of the original contract price, yes, for sure, the original contract price has changed that much based on those additions to the contract that are this fraction of it is COVID escalation. But the overall budget, the overall project budget that captures multiple contracts, including a power supply, the power supply billing, but also some other ancillary projects in there, that they're lumped into the overall budget. At one point, I tried to have two separate tables in this report in the in the executive summary there, where we talk about the table in the executive summary that says, NUPIC Headworks and Power Supply capital budget tries to at least group the 140 million of other projects, other contracts in a other category. But it leads to a very hard thing to try to communicate in terms of when we're talking about this $328 million contract. We're adding $47 million to that contract. So yes, the mix of percentages in there are actually referring to different changes. The 38% would be, I guess, total changes to the original 2021 contract, including soils, sector, some other changes, and this.
I'm troubled by the use of lower numbers when 38% is the overage, right? I mean, you can claim it's, I get what 9 is, which is to say we were at 376 and then we went a bunch over and then we're now going some more over. So it's not that big an increase because we were already over, but surely the most relevant number is that we're 38% over and we're gearing up to get going on an even bigger contract with the same firm. That troubles me, I have to say. I mean, because that's a much bigger base number to start on.
Two things, slightly different firm. It's not the exact same people or entities, but also completely different project delivery method. And so that we have done most of all for many reasons, but one of them to manage the risk in delivering contracts of this size. So the progressive design build avoids the locking in of a price at the beginning of the project. You work through, get a lot further along through the design. We have a lot of input and work with that partnered entity to get to the construction portion of the project.
You know, maybe I could just also add that the purpose of the relief events that, you know, Tim was talking about is to ensure that we're only paying for the risks we actually experience versus a potential risk. So we did extensive ground investigations initially, and, you know, you find out what the ground conditions are. We knew there was some contaminated soil. That gets built into, you know, let's say 1% is contaminated soil. Well, in reality, maybe they experience 5%. So instead of them thinking, oh, let's just bid for 10%, we pay for what we only experience. So, you know, yes, we call it an over expenditure, but they are legitimate changes to the contract, and it really protects us from paying for things that could happen that don't materialize.
Like the 38% it includes some percentages that were essentially allotted for in the project, but not in the contract, to Cynthia's point, where we have money allotted for things like contaminated soils. And as we realize them, they get into the contract. It's an over expenditure to the contract, but it's within the project budget. So that's why there's the attempt to have the two different numbers here. We want to disclose, yes, the revised total contract price exceeds the original contract by 38%, but you know, the other items are within the overall project budget.
The overall project budget is still up 19%.
Yes, because we're here almost at the end of the project, and you know, looking for that, you know, to restore that contingency, have that, to restore the contingency.
So Red River Solutions is not the same as Red River Solutions Mark II?
The second is Red River Biosolids Partners, and there's a word for it, not the conglomerate, but it has some different parties to it. It does include Oscar Renda and AECOM, but then there's
Stantec.
Stantec is but they're not in Headworks, so. Yeah. But the key difference really is very different delivery method.
Construction officers working on project 2 though, right?
We are
Is he
working with them,
assisting?
yes, yeah.
He's looking at it in detail.
We've been informing him of the projects, trying to get him up to speed with these really big projects that we're doing.
So he's involved, though he wasn't really involved in the headworks, right?
What question?
Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Tran.
So supply chain issues post-COVID have been resolved. But what about, in terms of this project and going forward, are there any areas that are subject to tariffs? Because we now find ourselves in that regime.
You mean the overall upgrade or the Headworks? Is it like, I guess both?
For both.
I know we're trying to stay on top of that. I don't.
There is potential, right, that we could be subject to tariffs. Those things seem to be ever changing. So we are working very closely with, especially within the PDB, like the Progressive Design Build, to look for ways to mitigate. On Headworks, we worked with a contractor to say, can we, for example, get things in advance, perhaps. So we are working very closely with them on this one.
So does it impact like how your estimates are going forward, or what the request may be for additional expenditure as a result of tariffs?
Like right now, we haven't. There's no tariffs included in our current cost estimate. And it is something, though, like I said, we are keeping a very close eye on and trying to stay ahead of.
Like corporately too, we're trying to, like the city's trying to coordinate a tariff plan, and aware of it on our individual projects, but we're also trying to coordinate as a group.
And fortunately, we have purchased, a significant amount of the material that we require for Headworks. And also to support us, we have external legal helping us with these tariff things, and, making sure we have the experts as part of our team to help us.
Okay. Councilor Rowlands, any questions?
Yes. So I think you answered
in my first one, which I like to explore, as a matter of debate, is if council does not approve this, what alternatives have you explored?
We go to arbitration.
And the reserve.
Yes.
Can you talk to me about the health of the reserve, the remaining balance in place, and the implications for other environmental priorities and needs? For 2025, like pending council approval, I guess this fiscal and beyond.
Yeah, it's a great question. So the reserve, and I'm not gonna remember what the projected balance is gonna be for the end of this year. We do have it in our middle of our budget preparations to show that is, we do report on all reserve balances for sure, but
And you've already submitted your budgets for 2026 this summer, I would imagine. But still a budget, capital budget, yeah, you're still working on.
in process, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it might be worthwhile to just like if you think about like the Rutland trunk, like one of our CSO projects came in quite a bit under estimate. So we well, no, but I mean it came under like $30 million.
No, yeah.
And so
It's you.
Yeah, I know
It's our
crazy.
department.
Yeah, and I don't want to get desensitized to the magnitude of these numbers because it is crazy.
I just mean it's tens of millions all the
Yes.
time. That's what I meant for those watching, yeah.
And so that coming under and some of the work we're doing in Project 2 right now, as we're working on the design of Project 2 with the partnership and our changing selections of technology that we're going to use, maybe forecasting that we're going to spend a little bit longer on design and start construction, if that delays to another calendar year, it has massive impacts on the cash flow forecast because these projects are so huge. And those projects I'm talking about are all coming from the same, are mostly funded from the reserve. I mean, there's also we do have, and the absurdity of it because of the magnitude of these numbers, it's hard to communicate, but we do get, I don't want to say breathing room, but we made those changes. We updated our forecast this summer, and it's like we actually can take this out of the reserve this year without impacting the expected cash flows in these projects for the rest of this year. We do have a rate report coming.
But you're talking about the cash flow with respect to this project. I'm asking you to anticipate the reserve.
Yeah, no, the cash flow out of the reserve,
Okay,
because like the environmental projects reserve, like the reserves are created and are fixed, they're by definition on what projects they can fund. So like our water main renewal reserve has to fund water main renewals. The environmental projects reserve actually funds NUPIC, CSO, South End, like the sewage plant. It has kind of a little bit bigger basket. So it's not only for the Headworks project. So and if you recall during the audit, flagged the idea of a management reserve, right? Which we don't have. We meet that function with something called working capital. And so bear with me. In normal times, we meet that function with something called working capital, where we take our forecast in a given year, get our rate report, present a rate report to council, and it includes this attempt at forecasting cash flow and a percentage to park money for working capital. Usually we target, like other utilities, 10%, 11% working capital, so that we have the ability to manage things that show up like this, right? Because we've been trying desperately to manage our rate pressure, we've actually, the last 2 rate cycles, dropped our working capital down to like 1%, 2%. So if our rate forecast overestimates the cash flow such that we have $47 million near the end of the year available, historically, we would like to put that back in working capital so that we have the funding for stuff like this. But because we've been keeping rates, we've got pressure to keep rates as low as possible. We're kind of running with lower working capital the next couple of years. And the risk is that we here, because we've got an updated cash flow, this is serving the function of what working capital would do.
Yes. That is, the pickle in a nutshell. I think, so the tension, and I hear what you're saying, because you know, I am really concerned about the clarity to the public with respect to rates and that there is a line of sight actually on combined affordability. That aside, you know, your tension is both things, that and a council that's interested in that, but also just like constantly running on empty, running on below empty. I should actually be more effusive on that point, but it's hard to actually determine words, given we're one of two of these kinds of projects with these kinds of departments in the country. How funds are allocated from critical reserves like this and how the city is safeguarding its long-term both environmental and fiscal responsibilities is just a question I'm panicked about. And I think panic is the right word to use. I'm speaking for myself. This report on what are we at, 556 million more, like it's easier to say 600. Report this late in the game saying, maybe please have our contingency back. It's really difficult. It also brings it brings forward a lot of competitive concerns with respect to the legal information that the department is bringing forward. That council is being asked, to prevent an arbitration. I see that, but it is, kind of normal for other cities that are experiencing this too. I get that. There is some good scholarship on this, in particular with pandemic and the fiscal realities of municipal spending that includes, these types of discussion and relief packages. But it's an interesting meeting today because it feels finance and half EPC actually in terms of bringing it forward to a standing policy committee in front of him. So I have transparency concerns. I think this is an ironic statement coming from me, but I feel that it's both and today where we're discussing in front of camera, the tender and development of our contracts in full view. And, my thoughts still remain with that audit in moments like this and how some of those things, administrative capacities aren't being realized. So I appreciate this report. What a hell of a number one agenda item. I'm prepared to move Councillor Eady, but I'm sure other people might want to.
All right. Would any of you propose to move the recommendation of the?
Yes, I said it. So. All right.
I'll be recorded.
I couldn't quite hear you, Councillor Rhodes.
She says she's ready to move.
Well, you're going to move it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you're moving that. Call the question then. All those in favor of the recommendation from the public service?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is,
I said I was opposed.
you're opposed?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so that passes 3-1. Thank you. Report item 2, the Veolia report. And
Yes, so this is our annual summary of the Winnipeg Sewage Treatment Plant Program and our partnership with Veolia North America. You know, it's a kind of standard format report. We a lot of information in here. I'll try to maybe hit on some highlights. It's year 14 of our 30-year agreement with Veolia. Just as a reminder, like the agreement partners us with Veolia and the resources. We obviously maintain full ownership of the facilities and operate facilities, but these folks that are here from Veolia are embedded in the kind of the technical support role for us, and they bring their worldwide experience to help us with these projects and looking for operational efficiencies in the long run. The report highlights the work they did in 2024. It's a little late. I apologize for that. We try to get these earlier in the year. We try to get in June at the latest, and here we are in fall again. So it is, you know, almost a year out of date. But in 2024, I mean, we just mentioned the audit. You know, the audit didn't audit the agreement, but it audited, you know, part of the program, the new pick upgrades. And I mean, I'll point it out. I pointed it out when we had the audit. I'll point it out again. You know, like the auditor identified, you know, dedicated members who are committed to the success of the projects when I talked about the project team. They even specified saying, you know, this includes collaboration and integration with Veolia, who can supplement and bring major capital project experience. So there is, we believe there's value here, and we're getting value out of this day to day. And it was good to hear some external validation of that from. So alongside the major plant upgrades, I know obviously we talk about Nupik. It's kind of in the spotlight, but there are many other projects in the program, this upgrade program for all the plants that are covered in this. And you know, the team works on these things. If you look at page, I think it's page 7 in here, we have some examples. Like the, you know, obviously there's the nutrient removal facilities project 3, but there's the Intrant Foss project we did. There was that's part of the program. Everything in SUPIC. Our asset refurbishment and replacement program is something that is kind of a catch-all title for a bunch of things that really kind of get under the radar, but are major projects that we work on here. That's the list I'm talking about here. It starts on page 8, page 9 of the PDF. You know, they're the return activated sludge pipe refurbishments, the boiler replacements, aeration grid replacements. Like there's a lot of stuff going on, and that the group together delivers these projects. Couple other things. Every year we establish a key performance indicator list. Page 10 of the PDF there, we list like the project team, which has representatives from Veolia and the city, identify different tasks that they, you know, with an associated value that it's like a wish list. What are we gonna work on this year for the KPIs? As they are completed, then earnings go to the earning calculation. If they're not completed, they don't get the earnings. You can see this year there was a couple places where they didn't get to full completion. The compost strategy wasn't completed, and the program documents update were completed. So they don't, you know, we pick these KPIs, they work on them, and usually they're completed and they count. Sometimes they carry the following year. Every year, and this would be the 3rd year, I guess, I've presented this, and I kind of got a brush on it every year because it is a little bit of a unique financial arrangement. You know, Veolia gets their earnings are computed annually, and they get fees on the aggregate program target cost. So they get fees on the costs that were competitively bid. So that's kind of like if you think of a normal contract where we hire a consulting firm to deliver, you know, the contract administration. they'd have a fee off the contract is $10 million. They get some whatever percent of that. So that's all competitive bid. That was bid at the start of this project. So there's a fee on they earn just like a normal consultant on the project cost. There's also these pain gain share allocations that are a little bit more complicated and haven't really come into play significantly to date because of how they're calculated. They basically are set based on final warranty of a capital project is a pain gain, and it was a comparison to a starting cost of final cost. So you can see on tables on page 11 and 12, where it breaks down, like for example, for 2024, the fees on those costs, $1.7 million. The pain gain is actually $6,000 pain. It's smaller numbers in relation to the rest of the stuff, but certainly part of it here. The KPI total is there as well. The interest on the balance, because again, Veolia earns this money. It gets put into a earnings at risk account, which they can only withdraw from if they replace the value with a equivalent standing letter of credit. It's, like I said, it's not very conventional setup here, but basically it holds their earnings at risk until the program is closer to being finished. So it's the estimated earning ARA value is still that's listed here somewhere, right? Yeah, earnings. The ARA is the at-risk amount. So that's still at $41 million. So the earnings at risk have to be more than the at-risk amount before they can just start straight, cashing out some of that stuff. Maybe I'll just open up to questions if that's it's here.
Just to clarify though, so Veolia mostly is dealing with operational issues, processes and so on?
Well, but capital project delivery as well.
And capital,
Yeah.
okay. Now, on the capital project, so Veolia does have a lot of plants around the world and so on. Do they have any post-pandemic experience with their major capital projects?
Like in terms of delivery, do you mean, or the costing, or?
Well, just, yeah, like, have they, when we're looking for their expertise and they provide a lot of good stuff. But do they have any experience in building something post-pandemic?
They've been building plants all over the place. I can't 100% say, identify which one it would be, but we do have access to kind of their, we can put out questions that go to the wide Veolia group. It's kind of, they have this, I don't know, not like a chat board, but something where you can ask a question and it gets directed to experts in that area. So that's a huge advantage for us. And we have used that on, a number of occasions whenever we have questions.
It's like a network.
Thank you.
Like a
That's
professional
better.
network. where
Yeah.
you can-
Yeah, they have the networking and
Yeah.
plus they have employees embedded. Okay. Questions? Yes, Councilor Williams?
So I know there's no secret. I'm interested in the timelines, the milestones, and in particular, the accountability assignments with respect to the KPMG report. Do you foresee perhaps next year adding a section specifically tracking implementation and evaluating governance and oversight improvements and maybe some indicators with respect to those recommendations, or I'm looking for some mechanisms to apply the audit findings and governance enhancements, which I would at this stage, my prediction is there won't be any, but I'm looking for that transparency added to the context, even if it's a chart.
Yeah, I guess well, I'd say it's a nuanced answer.
Yeah.
No, because I mean, like, are like Veolia themselves wouldn't have that responsibility to implement the audit. It would be us.
That's right.
But
Mhm.
there are things that they're working on related to the audit, like some of the audit things. The dashboard.
Dashboard
Perfect
risk
example.
assessment.
So one of the audit recommendations was you guys need a proper dashboard here to communicate this stuff. Veolia is working on that as a result of it. As a because they have dashboards and some of the projects, and so they can so the dashboard reporting would show up in here. I guess could mention KPI or something.
If we made it.
But it wouldn't necessarily be that here's the program's progress on the audits. We'd be doing that at audit, the quarterly reports DPC through audit. Like we have to report to Jason or to the city auditor to say, here's where we're at, here's our 44 action items, these are the status of each one. So that's, we're specifically on the audit parts. Although,
For
like,
instance, maybe you could refer to, depending on timing, you know, this report touches on it. It says we're actively addressing. I'm looking for the detail on what that means. And you're saying if it's fair if you point to work in another report, but you say it here that you're actively addressing. It goes to governance again. It feels a little EPC, finance, and water and waste, but you're here. And so who's responsible for ensuring completion? Who is, how is progress being tracked and reported to council? And you know, that KPMG report summary for council is you are getting frequency needs. So even if you could point to, you know, what you're doing or other reports, then I can track it through committees always, but you know, I'm wondering if it's your plan for, you know, you mentioned Veolia and their, you know, the long-term nature of the scale of projects that they have. And the dashboard. I'm interested in the mechanisms that are applying the audit findings. And the overview, then hopefully reachable indicators. And saying how it is.
well, no, we have fair points and comments for sure. I think that for next year's, so the Veolia annual report for 2025 will mention, you know, this work was done as part of, you know, one of the audit recommendations. This work was done as part of like that sort of thing. And as if there are carryover items into 2026, like that activity should reflect in this report. I think that's absolutely fair. We can commit to that. Above and beyond that, I'm saying, yes, we have to report through audit, specifically on the audit list. But we are working with assets and project management on, you know, the proposed new governance model for NUPIC that is, you know, should be coming before council at some point where the reporting on the project altogether would be different and more frequent and a different governance model as a result of the audit recommendations. So that might help address some of the points you raised, but
What's the timing on that?
calendar year was still yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not the ones leading it, we're more supporting it, but
Who's leading?
assets and project management. Yeah, the hope is, I believe, that it goes end of year, beginning of next year, but.
Tiny little governance pickle this kind of, okay.
All right, thank you, Councilor Rowlands. Either Councilor Mazer or Chambers?
No.
Nope. I think it's in there. Can you just read the embedded employees of Veolia? What was the amount we paid them in 2024
that is on. That is.
Direct costs would be
Yeah, the direct, oh, yeah.
$3 million for
3 million?
2024.
Okay. Do you know what it was the previous year?
2.9.
Oh, okay. There you go.
The table shows the previous year.
All right, entertain a motion, anybody? So moved, all right, all those in favor? Nobody's opposed this time, that is carried. Moving on to report item 3. Combined sewer overflow. Jefferson and Mission, and of course, we also have, thanks to the work of Councillor Mays, we also have Armstrong, which is a huge one as well, but
Yeah, I'm gonna turn this over to Ms. Weeb to present.
Sounds great, thank you. So this report provides an update on the status of Mission and Jefferson combined sewer overflow mitigation work. It also compares where we are currently to the plan that we submitted as part of the 2019 CSO master plan. Our current license has us working towards an 85% capture by 2045. And our estimated cost to do this, to meet that target, is 1.15 billion. So that's a class 5 kind of conceptual high level estimate. So right now, like I said, our plans for a lot of the districts are conceptual. As we move forward with individual districts, we take it to a preliminary design where we try to, narrow down exactly what the plan for that district is. And then we'll divide the district into contracts when we take it towards detailed design, which is when we're finalizing all, the nitty-gritty pieces, and we put it out for construction. So for Jefferson, the primary driver for us picking Jefferson was for basement flood relief purposes. And it also does provide a significant CSO mitigation. So Jefferson will give us almost, 9% of the way towards our target. We did some work previously in Jefferson under the basement flood relief program, and then picked it up again in 2020 as part of the CSO master plan. So this district is ahead of the schedule. We've done 10 out of 12 contracts so far. We're currently working on 11, and we plan to have number 12 completed next year. So this one's really moving forward. And there's a tiny bit of storage work that we'll need to do towards the end of the end of the program 2043 that will get us towards the completion of this district.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, for sure.
On the Jefferson East map,
Mhm.
you've got a legend, current work, future work, and completed work.
Mhm.
What is the black represented?
The black, let me just go there quickly. The black would be the sewers the sewer streets where we've done no work. So nothing's been done there. We haven't had to touch the sewers there.
So no work is anticipated for them, or
No. So we don't need to do,
any of the years in black?
pardon,
Any of the years is shown here in black?
correct, yeah.
So there's a, what is it, maybe 10% of
That's
the
remaining.
solar?
Yeah, it's almost complete. So yeah, well ahead of schedule, and actually our initial estimated budget was 168 million for this work. There was a lot of look into sizes of sewer. We were able to combine it with some public works, like look for efficiencies. And we got some really favorable contract pricing. So in the end, we expect it to cost 76 million for us to get there. Another district that we're just starting our preliminary design in is Mission. It's hydraulically connected to the Roland district, so we've combined those two in this project. Mission itself doesn't provide a huge CSO volume benefit, but it's largely industrial, so it does provide a water quality benefit. In addition, it's an area that's really ready for some redevelopment and some densification. So these are things that we can look at and combine with our CSO plan. So again, this one's been advanced. It's ahead of schedule. We are, like I said, we're in the preliminary design and we expect to have construction complete around 2041. And this is, like I said, it's not just Mission, we're working with Roland as well. So yeah, there's a variety of work that we have planned here, again, largely separation. So in terms of cost, we had initially estimated that it would cost 151 million. And we're currently estimating it's gonna be closer to 180 million. So some
Can you
districts,
give me that again? You would?
it was estimated at 151 million. And we're currently estimating that it's going to cost 180 million. That's $2025. The 151 would have been 2019 dollars.
The
So
original estimate though, was that on Mission only or Mission and?
we're combining Mission and Roland.
It always has been? Okay.
Based on what class estimate?
Class 5, that was initial class 5, yeah. Because this is a really complex district, so the design is gonna involve a little more than we had initially anticipated as well. Like we're looking at, it's gonna encompass like the Dougal Drain area, so it's quite a big district. And as Councillor Edie mentioned, we are working on a number of other districts. We've got Cobourg-Kalrossie, we have Armstrong, Cobourg East, Ferry Road, Riverbend. And really, once we're done all these districts, we'll be almost 2/3 of the way towards our targets. So Armstrong itself is 27% of our way towards our target. So that's going to be, that'll show us a really huge win when that one's complete.
Sorry, it's percentages of percentages, right? So
Correct,
we're
yes.
trying to get from 75 to 85. So Armstrong is a quarter of that 10%.
Yeah, it was 70, initially it was 73% to 85, so it's, yeah,
Fair enough.
4% of the overall.
And,
Yeah.
and Jefferson's about 1/10 of the
Yes.
gap.
Right, yeah, that's a good way
Very
to put
Sorry
it,
to
yeah.
interrupt that.
Yeah, and how is the projects in St. James going?
Yeah,
Well,
fair.
they're about to do the big trunks.
That's correct, yeah, we have awarded the Rutland Trunk. This is a very big tunnel that we're gonna be starting any day now. We have the contractor in Winnipeg for that, so that'll then give us the opportunity to start going into the other streets that will connect into it and see some relief.
Okay, any other questions, colleagues?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
More positive.
I seen your
in tone
email,
and,
so-
more positive in tone than the questions under agenda item 1. Okay, so the good news would be we're costing this out as a $1.15 billion exercise, not a $2.3 billion.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so that hopefully cuts half a century off this
Mhm.
thing, as long as we just keep funding. Okay, so the rough understanding that I had committee council was, okay, we probably can't get it all done if we have to go it alone on funding. We can't probably get it all done by 2045, 46, 47. But we can probably get the big ones done by 2045, 46, 47, if we have to go it alone. So it would seem to me we can get Jefferson and Mission Roland done by, in fact, earlier than that, early 2040s.
Correct, yeah.
What about Armstrong will be done
Correct, yes.
well before then, I would
Yes,
assume.
Armstrong should be completed in 2029.
Right, okay. Got your chart here. What about, it was interesting to look at this, because there's 50 odd districts, but to comprise that 1.5 billion, man, there's 3 or 4 really big ones. Then
That's correct.
right, so you got Jefferson, Mission, Ferry Road. If you look at the 2019 plan, the next one up is Ferry Road, but we're well underway there. I'm not sure if Rutland's in the Ferry
Yes, it
Road.
is.
Okay, so Ferry Road will be home by early 2040s.
I think so, yeah, I think it's, one sec here, I need to, Ferry Road, 2030.
Even if we don't get federal and provincial help, we will get this thing done, but okay. And then there's a big drop off to whatever Tilehurst and River Bend are, which are both by Ferry Road. And River Bend, we've been doing work, I think.
Some of Riverbend has been completed, yes.
Okay,
It's
and then-
part of like Ferry Road, Riverbend and Douglas Park were combined.
And the next two, and then there's a big drop off after, the next two are Armstrong, where we're barreling along, and Coburn, where I think we're mostly done.
Mostly complete in
Okay.
Coburn as well, we're just working on Coburn East as well.
So good, okay, so I can retire my 2095 speech to relief of all. Couple of questions more though, the original Jefferson estimate in the 2019 plan was 145 million, that would inflate up a bit, you gave us a number of 170 or something. And it came in at 76, which is, or it is projected to come in at 70, which is incredibly good, right?
Yes.
So, and verifies our decision that we don't need 100% contingency, but green infrastructure is supposed to be 10% of the budget. So when the budget, how are we accounting for that? We're coming in at half the original estimated budget. What does that do on the green infrastructure?
Green in Jefferson.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say, there's no green in Jefferson, is there?
I don't know.
Yeah, no,
But there will be in Armstrong.
Yes.
and we're looking at areas for mission as well. So when we're doing the preliminary design, we look for opportunities for green infrastructure.
So
And we're
not an issue in Jefferson, but we'll have to sort of. And I appreciate the 10% is not on each district.
It's not, no, it's sort of it's program wide.
Okay, so it may come in higher on mission.
It could come in, yeah, more than 10% in some will be less than 10%.
Okay, so a series of good news
Mhm.
stories here. So, but which leads to the key question, which is you've got in here, I had it, I don't think, that we're approximately, we think we can, we think with current, well,
But
if we have to go it alone, we think we can get this work done
That's correct.
prior to 2045. And the impact on the rates, there's a phrasing here, I'm just trying to find it of,
I think it's the paragraph right above.
what page you're on?
So, it's to the rates.
In our 10-year rate model, we are accounting for right now 30 million, which per year, except for these, 2 years ahead and past 2 years where we've done 45 million to advance some work. Starting in 2028, we're going to be inflating, escalating that number every year. And that should get us to 2045.
So the rate model, like I can hear Lucy in my head saying that the rate model runs on a forecasted cash flow, which is not always the same as approved budget forecasts. Like the approval authority for budgeting is a little bit different. So it's a subtle difference, but I just think she would want me to say that. But and it's important to note, like the rates have the environmental projects reserve has a set factored part of the rate that goes into it. So like 60%, 60 cents per cubic meter goes to EPRD. And which helps spark some money for these projects. Doesn't pay 100% for these projects, because retained earnings does on a given year as well, right?
It all comes from
It all comes-
EPR.
Okay, I
Correct.
thought we used retained earnings. I will withdraw that comment.
So I found phrasing I was looking for, so the bottom of page 4, based on the class 5 estimate of 1.5 billion, the current level of funding for the CSO program is approximately equivalent to what is required to meet council's directions to work towards the goal of achieving the 2045 deadline city funding. Is that 45, the current level of funding is at 45 and is about to go back down to 30, so clarify that for me, if you would.
That's correct. It's based on the average of 30 million, which
Okay.
increases with inflation. But we have accounted for the additional 60 million over the 4 years as well.
Okay,
So
so very good news then all
Yes.
around. All we have to do is start going up 3%, which the 2019 report always said, you're gonna have to inflation adjust this.
Mhm.
Not contingency, it was always two separate, so if you go from 30 million and start bumping that up 3% a year for the duration, we
Yes.
will be done a
at
huge chunk of this stuff.
1.15 million, some
Right.
projects come over, some are under, so it's,
Over 100 under in Jefferson, that's
Yeah.
huge, but we'll be over in Mission.
and we were under in for a Rutland trunk and so it
Okay.
all depends, right?
Good, okay, so
Yeah.
the news, we're gonna bring us in half a century ahead of,
Mhm.
or more or less, we're gonna bring it in without having to break the bank. There will be a rate impact to go from 30 to 30 plus 3% plus,
There isn't.
but we can do this without federal or provincial help, semicolon, if we inflation adjust.
Need help on Newpick.
That's the
Yeah,
current plan we're working.
that's- That's the good news for us, is we can do this on our own, because we're gonna need help.
We
on
need
it.
Newpick.
Okay,
Um,
those are my questions. Thank you, that was very.
you can
thorough
move the
answers.
report, Counselor. I want to get to
Sure.
report number 5 before Counselor Rollins has to leave. So,
No, I'm hearing all this is positive news and again, going forward, I mean, we've got a plan to separate the combined sewer networks. And as
In
our
part.
city, in part, and as our city continues to grow, it's already, we're building our city with the separated sewer. So again, we're ticking the boxes one by one, and hopefully by 2045, we'll be in a situation where everybody's protected. So move the motion.
I'm happy to move it.
Move.
For Councillor Mays.
Yeah. Sure.
it's for information. Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. We're going to skip 4 for the moment. Does somebody just want to move? This is an extension on sewer rates.
So moved.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Report number 5 on the impact of the rate increases on household.
Yes, I have Elizabeth Senarini. She's our manager of customer engagement and strategic projects. She's going to present this report. This was her report to manage. So it's here. We'll take a look. Oh, it's.
I thought you were gonna talk.
Well, this is, sure, I mean, I can introduce it, like this was a report that was requested, I think quite a while ago, we asked for an extension on it at one point. I know that, it was requested earlier in the year in the context of, we had some very significant rate increases. You guys all know that. So the initial motion, I think, requested look at some data that maybe the city didn't necessarily have access to, like correlating rent increases with utility rates and that sort of thing. But we did have some work with the CBA economist here to kind of come up with a good report that kind of explains the sort of things that we are doing in terms of the changes we're making to our Help to Others program, the expansions we're doing to so we can cover things like more than just water and sewer bills, also our new waste fee, garbage fee, that sort of thing. But yeah, the report does touch on all that.
I think the main focus is our H2O Help to Others program, which our current program is a joint initiative between ourselves and Salvation Army. It's very similar to the Neighbors Helping Neighbors program that Manitoba Hydro runs for energy bills, and Salvation Army actually administers that one as well. We have a series of requirements now. People have to be up for disconnection. Their household income has to be lower than federal low income cutoff. They have to have the utility account in their name. They can't be getting social assistance. And you can't have applied before. You have to have actual meter reads and you know how important that is. And they can't have violated the water sewer bylaw. Most of the violations are people haven't provided readings in over a year. So they apply through the Salvation Army. In looking at what we need to change the program to make it more, to make it easier for our customers to apply and to qualify. A lot of conversations with the Salvation Army about what we could do better. Aligning it more with the Manitoba Hydro program. Manitoba Hydro is actually looking at making some changes. They should be introducing some changes shortly where they were looking at including people who were on employment income assistance, as well as instead of it being a one-time credit, making it every 2 years, something like that. So we're gonna look at that. We also heard through the poverty reduction strategy, we had a lived experience session a while back. And it was very clear to us, there was things that we need to look at in terms of what proof of identity we're asking for. Right now, we ask for driver's license. That people don't necessarily have that, right? And also looking at asking for less detail about customer situations so that we're not asking people, not doing some trauma dumping. Because what happens is we're asking for some basic information in the application form, but it's really the Salvation Army working very closely with applicants and meeting with them to assess their eligibility, and then they provide us their opinion in terms of whether, like they'll recommend whether people are eligible and what the credit amount should be. What the Salvation Army also does with these customers is they provide them referrals to other community and government programs to help with assistance. And they'll also see whether they're eligible for other forms of financial assistance or employment or counseling, that kind of thing. What I heard from the Salvation Army in my discussions were that a lot of the people who are applying are people whose financial situations have changed recently. Say they've been through a separation or a divorce, they've lost their jobs, those kinds of things. So we need to look at being a little more flexible in terms of how we provide, apply the program. The other thing that is happening concurrently is as part of our review of the waste management strategy, we've got a consultant that is undertaking a study to see what we can do about setting up a subsidy program for solid waste services. Right now, the H2O program includes, part of that credit includes the new waste management fee. So we may need to change our H2O program if we introduce a second program to help on the solid waste side of things.
Especially with compost coming.
Yeah.
Questions?
I have a comment. So the water and waste, the committee asked for a report back on the impact of the utility increases on affordability and for expanding the existing affordability programs, including increased visibility and outreach for programs like Salvation Army H2O. And I'm not seeing, because there is no recommendation, I'm not seeing where increased visibility comes in. I'm hearing an exegetical. We did some good work towards this in terms of research, in terms of partnerships and understanding in theory, because we know what the data is on who's applied in the past. And so there are no implications associated with the recommendation of the report, and this report is to be seen as information. I don't believe there's a program here, and I don't believe there's increased visibility. So can you talk to me about your immediate next steps and what in theory would be a recommendation to council? Because when council passed this and I was the mover, my intent was twofold: increase visibility for the program and addressing barriers. So you've provided sort of an exegetical towards understanding barriers, i.e., you know, the identification requirements that you've talked about. But I'm not hearing the program implementation at all. Is that, you know, maybe that's not fair, but it's highly theoretical. And I was looking for a practical program, building out the H2O subsidy program with or without partners, frankly, but we have a partner. And I'm not seeing that in this report. So if we were to move it to the next meeting, would you have some recommendations here?
Won't be ready next meeting, but by the end of the year, we should be able to come forward. It's a council policy that outlines the program, so we need to come back. Yeah.
I just want to note that you were given 90 days and then an extension as a department. And at no time during the extension were we told actually it's going to be 300 and, you know, it's going to be a full year before we could do this. So tell me then, why are the timelines to build out the existing programs or even to meet a visibility need so expansive?
Yeah, we do.
Tell me why it takes that long.
No, the dollar amount we changed, but the policy itself, we have to come back. It's a council policy.
So perhaps if we could move it to the next meeting for a verbal report on understanding this, I can have more discussions with the public service, you know, in to help me understand why at first it was 90 days and now it's a year. So I'd like it to be a verbal report next meeting. If we could, Mr. Chair, so moved.
Okay, I'll call the question then. All those in favor?
If I may just make sure I'm understanding the motion, it would be to lay it over for 30 days for the public service to provide further information on changes to the H2O to help others policy.
Verbally, yeah.
No, just
Verbally.
like the housing affordability and utility rate increase, the item on the next
Okay,
agenda.
just a general light for that.
We can talk in the meantime, but I don't want you to decide on the fly why. So, you know, if you have things to talk about as a department, but and I'll give you a call if that's fair, and then we'll talk again next month.
I think it's fair. We have a rate report coming and you make a good point, Councillor Rowland. So so we got that right.
Yeah, so it'll be a laid over for 30 days.
Yeah. Okay. All those in favor? Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Moving on, so you have to leave, Councillor Rowland? Yeah.
Maybe
Okay, we're moving to
take my leave, sorry.
which one? We
I was gonna deal with item number 6 just to.
good with 6? Okay, then we're moving to report number 6. Recycling options for community events on city-owned land, which would be community centers, parks, things of that nature. Closing of a street.
Yeah,
Just so.
yeah, no, I mean, the city ought to take leadership on these types of initiatives where, again, we are making sure that from a recycling perspective, we're taking the responsibility and making sure that anybody that rents our city spaces is fully aware of what their obligations are in terms of the refuse that is left behind,
Okay,
including organic matters.
so like we could
Well,
ask.
are you
Mr.
saying the organic should be treated separately, or what are you saying?
Well, I mean,
This is specifically about recycling. Organics are a composting issue.
yeah, but if there's an opportunity to place a bin at this location for organic matters that can be recycled or
Be
Composted.
composted, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if
Your
you wanna add
motion-
that on to it.
Your motion doesn't necessarily deal with that, but I do want to say that CPCRA is such an excellent partner. They provided every single counselor with We Recycle Everywhere bags. The partner, we have a radio partner at the city that has been promoting events and events, and that's really exciting that consistent effort to train people. And when I think of the enforcement, the first thing I think of is enforcement through public education. So before we do a deep dive in enforcement options, I would really like just to see information and public education as the first step in any great enforcement model. And that's training people how to recycle. I'm gonna take my leave because I have to run and don't want to speed. But I do have, I am committed to, you know, as a local councillor that sponsors events.
Yeah.
To support your motion in spirit too. And I hope it moves successfully without me. I have no doubt it will be unanimous.
So, okay, so what we have is, there's a new solid waste plan coming out. We can, water, waste, fire, we can deal with it, in those terms. However, I just like, so when, I don't remember the association, I did not know that they could provide supports for community events to help deal with recycling. And I think that we need to also refer this to Public Works, who does booking in most of, other than some community centers that does the booking for events. Where maybe there's an opportunity, cause like you have to pay a fee at say Kildonan Park or whatever. They could be, the people putting on the event could be educated into making a call here or there to help them deal with the recycling, that sort of thing. Does that sound fair?
Yes.
Okay. So, and then we want solid waste to deal with this in their upcoming plan. One more thing is the issue of compost. Well, you know, that's interesting because we do like at Sydney, we'd be moving, but like at Sydney Clausen, we have a composting thing happening over there, here, there, everywhere, right? So, do we want to add that then?
Well, I mean.
We
this-
could, that's your recommendation, Councilor.
Yeah, I mean, the city does do composting. I mean, we do yard waste and whatnot. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there is the ability to facilitate organic matter that is left over at our city-run facilities and parks and open space. So again, it could be added. Or should be added.
Oh, let's add that, okay?
Yeah.
Although there won't be any, there's no organization, well, there isn't.
Private
There's
organizations.
private right now, but you have to pay them, right?
At a cost.
Which the organization, ultimately what this comes down to is the community organizations that are putting on events, not all of them have enough money to deal with it all if they have to pay for it, right? And they don't have enough volunteers, so on and so forth, so. Make that clear, so actually. So we'll just add the words, I don't know how to do this in the.
I'm thinking, if I may, in recommendation one, have it as that the Winnipeg Public Service be directed to report back to the Standing Policy Committee on Water, Waste and Environment with options for encouraging or enforcing recycling and organic composting at community events on city-owned land.
And I'd like to actually refer this one. Well, maybe we could also refer at the same time to Public Works when they're booking booking events on community land, city-owned land.
Just wanna check some wording here so that the matter be referred.
Public work, fire.
The standing policy committee, or are you just looking for the department to work with the public works department?
Well, I'd like to explain it, so
Standing policy, okay.
refer to IRPW, and I actually sit on that stand.
Alright.
Here.
Works and is that the final report that we
Actually,
go
hold
forward?
it, I'm trying to remember how long. Not public works, sorry, community services.
This is specific to park bookings?
Yeah, parks and open
Okay.
spaces, it's parks and open spaces,
Okay, community services.
sorry.
And just to be clear, is that the final report, not this motion here?
No, I'd like this motion to go to them.
Okay.
To community services, I'll appear in front of community services at their next meeting.
Okay, so just to be clear, this is gonna be a recommendation up to council. So as it stands, this would go up to council. And then if it was referred to community services, this item would go to community services. And then there would have to be the direction to report back at that point.
Just amended it, that recommendation at council.
Okay. And do we have a report back timeline?
For here, what's your recommendations?
Well, we have our our new waste management strategy. Sorry, the comprehensive integrated waste management strategy that we're gonna try to rename
Solid waste
this
plan.
time. Yeah, the solid waste plan. That report we're trying for October, probably November, but certainly in the next 60 days, we're gonna have our waste management strategy at the committee here to present and talk about.
60 days.
Yeah, because I would think that you would like, this obviously is not directly addressed in that report, but we do talk about promotional material and education efforts and this sort of thing. I would assume you'd want to hear our plan.
You could amend
and
your
then,
solid
yeah,
waste.
and then have this, after you hear the plan, then say, okay, come back with a report on these options, further to that plan. So
Or we could just amend your plan. If we know where to do it. But you got an education plan anyway.
Yeah, certainly. So
It wouldn't be a
60
big change.
60 days.
All right, so as you wrote it up,
Sorry, 60 days for us to come back with how to do this? It would be different than,
Yeah, it would be with the report from this motion. When would you like the report to come back?
or would you like it a month after? I think they should come back at the same time, sorry. Like, you're not gonna change, it's in the system, right? So we're not, so what I'm saying is 60 days, you can report on it, right?
well,
Would it take you more than 60 days?
it takes us 2 months to get the review process usually for us to make the November meeting, we have to have a report now. So I would say at least 90 days. At least 90 days.
If we are anticipating changes based on that report coming forward in 60 days, the committee could also have the option to request that council provide an extension of time for 60 days so that this motion comes forward at the same meeting.
I'd like it to come forward at the same meeting, I'm sorry.
And just to be clear, that what I was phrasing was not the report itself, but this motion as sent by council, and at that point, the department could be directed to report back based on the information from that report.
Right, like the waste strategy comes in November, this motion.
This exact motion, so to
same
speak.
time, and then motion says, okay, thanks for your waste strategy, or we at the meeting, we accept the waste strategy, it's gonna be great. And then this motion says, okay, 2 months or 2 months later, come back with, we need at least 3 months, sorry, I'm thinking any report, we need at least 3 months. Come back with a report on how to do this, would be like February, right? So that makes sense.
Yeah, so yeah, this would just be essentially the motion that was on the agenda today would come back in 60 days if council was
yes.
supportive
Okay.
of the extension, but it's will of the committee.
Council?
60 days?
Yes, it would be to give the committee 60-day extension of time to consider this motion. That way amendments at that time could come forward after the report that Mr. Shanks was referring to.
So that'll keep us still in this year then.
Yeah, that's
The motion, yes.
This motion, yes.
But a report on doing this stuff wouldn't be this year.
No,
You want to put a timeline on that? When they would report back to us, probably in the first quarter in the new year.
Yeah, maybe that.
Okay.
The one suggestion I would have on that though is if we were doing the extension of time, it would be to make amendments to this motion based on what comes forward in the report for 60 days. If the committee does know what they want to see reported on in the first quarter of next year, we could certainly move that motion as well.
Okay, that makes more sense.
That's a good recommendation, Mr. Harris.
Okay, so just to be clear, this would be just to request that council provide the committee an extension of time of 60 days to make a recommendation on this motion that came from council.
Yeah, so moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Construction solid waste, report number 7, Mr. Shanks, you're looking at this. What's your recommendation?
Just for awareness, like the province has a construction renovation and demolition task force. It was set up in 2023. City of Winnipeg participated and a whole bunch of folks from, Manitoba Home Builders Association participated too on this task force. There's a bunch of working groups. Apparently there's a report, the province's task force has put together a report. It's before the Minister of the Environment about, renovation and demolition waste. So, we don't want to duplicate work that's already done. We kind of want to wait for that report. But, at the same time, to speak to this topic, I think, we should do it in concert with, like our waste management strategy can speak to what we're doing, overall. I'm not sure when that provincial report will be released. So, yeah, I mean, the here in this motion, we're talking about 180 days report back for a strategy. I think our report back, 180 days is fine. But our report back would rely heavily on what the province's strategy would be for this,
Which is cool. That's good. I like it. So.
And if the provincial report isn't ready in the 6 months, well, then I guess we'd ask for extension. Yeah.
Are you guys good? Or are you good with that, colleagues?
Yeah.
Yeah, so moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That is carried. Which one of you wants to move adjournment?
Sewer volume.
Oh, sorry, the volume. Oh, I forgot. What?
Did we get an extension for that?
Number 4, yes, we did address
Oh,
that.
yeah, we
We're
gave you
moving on
these.
to number 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gave you. Okay,
I'll move adjournment.
thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nobody's opposed. That's carried. Thanks, colleagues. Thanks, public service.
Thanks.
Right on. Wait, well.
You all?